In 2000, the leaders of the world's richest countries promised to provide enough aid to give every child in the world a basic education, while the poorest countries promised to increase their efforts to get every child into school. But today, more than 100 million children around the world are still missing out on education. For poor kids in developing countries, primary education can help them break out of poverty and to take control of their lives. In Africa, the crisis is getting worse. By the year 2015, a further 9 million African children will be without an education, making an estimated total of 54 million children deprived of even the most elementary education.
What's the answer to future problems, to poverty, to the economy, to jobs, to health care? It starts with education. It starts with kids being able to go to school.
That's why, in April 2004, nearly 2 million girls and boys took part in the world's biggest ever lobby during the global campaign for education's most exciting Action Week ever. Children in 117 countries across 5 continents met with their leaders and representatives to talk about what their governments must do to get all children into school. The world's biggest lobby for education was unique because it was action-led by children for children. This video shows just some of the highlights from around the world. Brazilian youngsters travelled all the way to Brasilia to participate in a very special session of their national parliament. The Vice President even launched a campaign of the Democratic Republic of Congo, while children went to the National Assembly to make their voices heard.
We have a lot of blind children in this country who are not having chance to go to school.
Gambian students representing children missing out because of disability, poverty or war spoke face-to-face with members of the National Assembly. In Niger, children lobbied the President of the National Assembly about children excluded from the education system. An amazing 10,000 messages were presented by youngsters to the Honduran Minister of Education.
Somos niños preocupados por la educación rural, ya que la mayoría de nosotros estudiamos en escuelas que casi no tienen aulas, agua, luz, ni siquiera tienen suficientes maestros.
And in Peru, children from all over the country took over the parliament for a day. It was the first time the parliamentary chamber had been used by anyone other than parliamentarians. Children, elected by their peers, got up to talk about why they had trouble going to school and also to give proposals for action. They impressed both the President of Congress and government ministers and were an inspiration to everyone who was there. In the United States, young delegates spoke to Senator Hillary Clinton, who offered her full support to the campaign. 18 youth parliaments were held at the same time around Spain. 60,000 messages were delivered to the Spanish president. In the United Kingdom, school children travelled to Westminster to meet the Minister of International Development, Hilary Benn, and Minister of Education, Charles Clarke.
It's not a straight choice between...
The children also took sacks of messages to Downing Street calling on Prime Minister Tony Blair to take action. And more than 2/3 of all UK MPs went back to their local school. Young campaigners also made their leaders maps to show where children are missing out on an education in their community.
What are the legislators doing to ensure that every Nigerian child has access to education?
During Action Week 2004, presidents, prime ministers, parliamentary presidents, education ministers, finance ministers and many other politicians were lobbied. Not only politicians but celebrities from around the world participated in the lobby, such as West Wing TV stars Bradley White and Julie Hill, film actress Scarlett Johansson, TV star Sharon Osbourne and Grammy-winning singer Susanna Bakker. Organisations such as UNESCO, ILO, UNDP and UNICEF gave their support to the week's activities too.
It is very important that politicians listen to the voices of young people on global issues.
As a result of the world's biggest lobby, many leaders have made firm commitments to ensure that all children get a good quality education throughout the world. In the United States, Senator Hillary Clinton launched a new bill to make primary education a top foreign policy priority for the US. and to increase aid to education to US $2.5 billion per year by 2009.
The world is very exciting to think that we are linked in a common cause to make sure that governments do what they have to do to provide education for all children.
In Kenya, where many families cannot afford school uniforms, the Minister of Education promised to write to all schools, telling them not to turn children away if they did not have a uniform. Following campaigning during the GCE Action Week, the Bangladeshi Prime Minister promised to include free textbooks for non-formal education schools in the 2004-2005 budget. The government also plans to spend more on teachers and on grants to attract girls to schools. Children were asked to draft a resolution about their concerns and recommendations on education, which will be adopted by the Parliament itself. During the Action Week in India, there was a symbolic vote on education. In a major breakthrough for campaigners, India's newly elected government pledged to increase public spending on education to 6% of GDP, which will mean 35 million Indian children will be able to go to school. So together with young people around the world, your action has already made a huge difference. But let's not stop there. We must make sure that politicians keep their promises made during the lobby, and that by 2015 all children around the world receive a good quality education. Next year's Global Action Week will be even bigger and even better.